Mai ki tēnei hui. We're here for Pūroro Maherehere Annual Plan Long-Term Plan Committee. Great to see you all in person, 3D, and we will, and great to see you on the screen as well. Sorry, in 2D or whatever it is. Well, e tū for the karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hi ake ana te ata kura. He tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora. All right, we're back in business. So first of all, apologies. I have apologies from Councillor Young for her absence and for Councillor Rush for lateness. Is there any others? Okay, I'll move those. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Neil. If you could please vote. Look, you've got your remotes. Yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, you press the button. And for those watching online, that's carried unanimously. I knew you were waiting for that information. Does anybody have any conflict of interest declarations? No? Okay, so we'll move on. I'd just like to make a few comments before I pass over to the auditor. And councillors, you'll have seen you've got a copy of the auditor's report in your email. So we'll check in about whether you need a bit of time to read it or if you've already had a chance. I guess I just wanted to make a few comments about how we've reached this point. About this time last year, we were embarking on consulting with our community on our long-term plan, an incredible amount of hard work by both elected members and officers, and with strong community support to finalise our ambitious plan in June last year. And in this process, to get us to here, I want to particularly acknowledge the Mayor. It's been very nice and easy to work with you so far on this, and let's hope, yes. Obviously, the challenges of the global pandemic have had a major impact on all of us. We've had to adjust some of our expectations, but we remain largely on track with delivering our key strategic priorities. And I really want to acknowledge our CEO, our executive leader team, and all our officers who have been doing the hard mahi during this time. So our approach to the annual plan has been to proceed with year 2 of the long-term plan with adjustments for changes that have occurred since the plan has been signed off. We know that there's strong support from our communities for our current level of services and the increased investment in strategic priority areas. So we can feel confident that we're balancing that work and, you know, those kind of community aspirations. The work leading up to this annual plan has included obviously several workshops and committee meetings to examine and extensively debate the issues and agree the way forward. So in February and March, we made decisions that were reflected in the draft annual plan. The LTP amendments that were referred to audit are now back on the agenda today. It's important to note that today we are approving the draft annual plan and the long-term plan amendments for consultation. So now is not our opportunity to make further changes. It's really the community's turn, so we get the plan out to them and hear what they think. Whilst not all councillors will agree on everything, obviously we work in a democratic system. The council considers all of the issues, has its debate, and then makes its decisions by majority. The resulting decisions become the position of the council, and the chief executive must then ensure the implementation of those decisions. I do want to note that since our last annual plan meeting, I've been disappointed by some ongoing efforts to undermine our decisions and attempts to disrupt our staff in progressing the work they have been asked to undertake. While interrogating the issues and facts, is an important part of our democratic process. We need to do so transparently and procedurally. That's what makes local government effective. And I just note that we do become distracted and inefficient when individual councillors seek to drive their own agendas by lobbying officers, questioning their practice and holding up work programs, by refusing to give up on ideas and complaints that were not supported by their colleagues. So we all have to acknowledge we put ideas up, they pass or fail, and we need to move on accordingly. So it is my sincere hope that as a council we can agree to behave fairly, not undermine the process that we have, and that as a team we can adopt a plan that works for Wellington. So that's my end of the sermon. And now I would like to welcome Karen Young to the table to say a few words. Have people had a chance to read the email? What we'll do is we'll get Karen to say a few words, then we'll adjourn for 5 minutes. That's all you'll need. It's very short, and then we can have some questions of Karen if there are any from councillors. So, just welcome to our meeting, Karen. I realise what a full-on time it has been for you, and as a council, how much we appreciate your work. Over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for inviting me to the meeting. I'm very happy to report that we've completed our audit of the proposed long-term plan amendment, and subject to the council adopting the document, we will be issuing an unmodified audit opinion.
Great. So we might, is it okay now, Karen, or we'll take a little break, read the email, and come back and see if there's any questions for you? Okay. We'll have a 5-minute adjournment, councillors. Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of work.
Are there any questions of Karen? Because of this it's great to have an unmodified opinion. So, are there any? Any online? No. Okay. Thank you so much, Karen. This is a bit of an anticlimax, but I'm sure we can make up for it another time.
Thank you, Chair. In that case, could I move to just thanking some key officers for the work with us on the amendment. So, in particular, I'd like to thank Jeffrey Coe, the outstanding project manager on this LTP amendment, Richard Marshall, the manager financial planning and policy, Catherine Merman, chief advisor to the coup, and Robert Hon, waste operations engineer. I know it took a lot of work for council to put it all down and get the supporting documentation for the proposal. My thanks extends not only to those 4 key persons, but anyone who contributed towards the whole process. We certainly had a lot of questions and they were answered very capably, and we thought the supporting information for both proposals was excellent. So my thanks to all concerned, and congratulations.
That is wonderful to hear, and I'm sure councillors would echo you in thanking all of our team for getting us to this point. Thank you, Karen. All right. So then we will move on to the paper, so the adoption of the consultation document. So I'll pass over to Stephen.
Kia ora, councillors, and nice to see you all here in person. Well, not everybody, but those online as well. As the Chair has said, this is actually year 2 of the LTP with various adjustments, obviously, to take account of things that have happened since the LTP was adopted, and to specifically deal with 2 LTP amendments, the City Housing Residual Waste. Obviously, all of these matters were deliberated by this committee on the 8th of March, and since that period of time has been through the audit, and really the purpose of this meeting is to receive that audit opinion unmodified today, and to adopt the draft annual plan and LTP amendments for consultation. And that's probably all I need to say, actually, because all of the debate has happened previously. All of the questions that have been posed have been answered, and over to you, Chair.
So do we have any additional questions from councillors in addition to those that have been asked and responded to in writing? This is going to be the shortest meeting ever. Yeah, there's cheering at the back. So any questions? In which case I will move over to the Mayor to move.
Well, thank you, and can I just say it's delightful to see you all here in the room together. It's great. It feels like we're starting to come back as a society. We're seeing more people in our streets and more people in our businesses, and we're seeing that activity, and that's fantastic to see. And an orange light, which is great. So really excited by all of those things. This is in a sense the procedural part of this. We've had the debate about what's actually in there, but I did want to highlight a few things if I can. The first one is that while this is we're talking about the annual plan, actually the reason we're here is not the annual plan itself. The reason we're here is the special consultations around city housing and the landfill, and I'll come to those in just a moment. In terms of the annual plan, I did want to say a few things, because while we've ended up roughly in the place that we started, there's been a lot of ups and downs in that, and actually that's quite some achievement to have got back to almost where we were, slightly below where we were actually in terms of a rates increase. I mean, the level of rates increase for me is not a comfortable thing, but we've got to that place, and it's not, I think this time probably less new things which have been put into the budget by councillors than I think I've ever seen before, because we're where we are. And I thank you for that forbearance. The only two things we've got there are actually reducing the cost of library operation, in other words, taking the fines out, and some additional resource for supporting our management of our natural environment. And those two, I think, are both very valuable investments. I do have a question mark around the $20 million fund around the sort of the green buildings, but people can give us their feedback on that. But the ups and downs. So the big ups, I think we've all got to recognise, is the pressure which has gone on everyone now in our society, because we started off a year ago when we put the LTP to bed. We were expecting a 2%, roughly 2% inflation. We were borrowing at 2.4%. And we've seen, even just in the last few weeks, we've seen the cost of interest to this council go up by $3 million. And that's just the last few weeks, let alone what's gone on before that. We've all seen interest rates rising. That has a real impact. And I can remember, it was Bernard Hickey was telling us we should go for broke and borrow heaps. And I'm just saying, well, we have a very ambitious capital program, but imagine if it had been even more ambitious, even if we'd been able to deliver it, which of course is a moot point. I think with the way in which the construction industry is, the chances of us delivering were pretty slim anyway. But the interest costs would have gone through the roof. And it would have affected us even more. So interest rates have gone up. And then, of course, inflation, we were expecting 2%, and we're at 6, verging on 7. And we're all seeing that in everything that we do, whether it's petrol prices or going down to the supermarket. Certainly the building costs have skyrocketed. I was talking to one of our staff the other day, and he said, they're building tracks. And he said, the cost of timber has gone up 10%, 3 months in a row. In other words, 30% in 3 months. The cost of lime for doing that, for spreading across a paths, that's gone up 25% in the last, matter of a few months. Those are huge cost increases, and we're not immune from those things. So what's driving the budget increase that we've got there? It is not us going and spending lots more money on things. It is 4 things. One is the capital program, which has already been agreed to, sometimes by this council, sometimes even by previous council. It's those big projects that are taking a long time, and once they come through, they have impacts on depreciation, impacts on interest. So it's things like town halls, Takina, Pūroro, big projects like that. We cannot undo those sort of things. They are concreted in. There are other things which we have to do, whether we like it or not, because if we don't do them, and the landfill is a classic example, if we don't do those things, there is going to be no landfill in the city. And I don't think anybody would necessarily, well, there might be a few people who would say it's a good thing, but obviously that will come with huge costs to the community as well. Sludge treatment likewise. We have to do these things, and they are time limited. We have to do them now. And then there are those critical investments that our community has said that it wants us to do, and they said that in no uncertain terms last year with our LTP in investing in critical infrastructure. So the discussion which we'll have tomorrow around the Taranaki Street pipes, which is about stopping sewage ever getting into our harbour, providing resilience for the wastewater network, and also providing for growth. Those are the kind of things that our community has said that it expects us to invest in. So there's the capital investment program. Then there's COVID. And if anybody doesn't think COVID has not had a substantial effect on the finances of this organisation, they are completely wrong. Obviously, it's affected our revenue streams, it's affected the costs of running this place as well, and we are having to borrow for that over an extended period of time. We're starting to pay some of those bits back, and that will flow through for several years. Then, as I said, interest rates and inflation. So those are the things which are really driving this increase. And the fact that we've actually managed to keep it to this level, I could say, well, councillors, thank you for your forbearance, but management, thank you so much for the work that you have done. So we are saving, this year, it is a cumulative $32 million. It's basically 10% of our rates bill. The last 2 years, we've saved 17. This year, it's another 15 to be saved. That is a significant gain. Now, we could save more money, but we're going to start, if we were to do that, we'd be starting getting into services. This council has said it doesn't want to do that. I know there'll be some people who would disagree with that around the table. I might sort of tend a little bit to that myself. But we know that to do that, there are significant consultation processes you've got to go through to put yourself in that place. And of course, people are welcome to comment on those kind of things. But I would always say to them, if you're going to say what it is that you want to save, be specific, and then wait for the feedback, because other people may well disagree with you. So that's the annual plan process, which, as I said, we wouldn't be consulting on if it were not for the two special consultations. So the two special consultations, I just do want to say a few words about those. First of all, social housing, and I want, again, I've said this before, but I want to congratulate you all, councillors, in your courage in actually taking the steps that you've taken, because previous councils knew there was a problem and didn't do it. And we've been told, I think we've been told sometimes, that the best time to plant a tree, the best time to make a decision was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago when you knew there was a problem. The next best time is today. And this is what this annual plan is about doing. Is we know that there is a capital issue there. The capital costs of replacing and improving our social housing stock have risen significantly for all kinds of reasons. Building costs is one of those, GST, seismic conditions, all of those kind of things. But it's an operating cost. Even if we were to throw $400+ million at it and get all the building stock up to standard, it would not solve our operating problem. In fact, it would make it worse because we'd have borrowed more money. And so that's the problem. At the moment, it's around $10 million a year. The last time I calculated, it was north of $20,000 a day that we're losing. And when you look at the numbers, it's in the documentation, it says that by year 10 and rising, we will be losing, if nothing changes, close to $130,000 a day, and getting worse. So something has to change. And from a tenant's perspective, it's not working either. Our tenants are paying 70% of market. For many of them, for something like 40% of them, it is more than 35% of their income. So they are struggling in that. So this doesn't work for us, it doesn't work for our tenants, and the combined effect of both of those is we can't build more social housing, which is the additionality that we want and that the government wants as well. So what we've got in front of us is a consultation document which says this is going to take a while to get out of, but if we don't get out of it, it is going to bleed the city dry, and it is not going to give us the housing that we need. We're having good conversations with government, and I want to really place on record my thanks to all the team, but particularly Catherine, to you for the work that you're doing, Angelique for the work that you do in managing the housing unit, Kim, all of your team. I really want to say thank you for the work that you do, and I hope that we will land at the right place by the time that decisions are made through the first half of this year, which will set us in the right direction to be able to have a portfolio which works for our tenants, that works for the council, and that provides for more social housing going forward. And I'll finish off with the landfill. The only reason the landfill is here is almost the technicality of that if we're consulting, because one of the options is, and we all know, we've all learned that we have to consult on all reasonable options. So one of the options there is to close the landfill. If we were to close the landfill, of course, that would mean trucking all our waste to some other jurisdiction, which will go down very, very well, and it would have a huge cost in moving it as well. That's one of the options. The other two options there are incineration, at least of a good chunk of our waste, or an extension to the landfill. Now, I think probably a lot of us would say we don't really like the idea of an extension for the landfill, but it's a much more modest extension than was proposed before. It doesn't run all the way up the valley towards Landia, which, of course, really, they were really concerned about, and others were too. It's a much more limited proposition, and so what we need to do is to accompany that with reducing the waste that goes into that landfill. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. And Laurie, if I can say thank you, Councillor Foon, thank you for all the work that you do in waste minimisation. So we need to do that. To achieve that, one of the biggest things we have to do, the big thing we have to do, is get sludge out of that landfill. Maybe some people need an education and watch sludges, but it's not great stuff. And for every tonne of sludge that goes into the landfill, we need 4 tonnes of other waste to mix it. And if you do that, you soon fill up a very, very large valley very, very quickly. So we need to get that sludge treatment done, and that's what I said earlier. Those are the critical things, the landfill and the sludge treatment. We might not have started them, but if we don't start them, we don't have a waste management arrangement in the city. So that's what that's about. I'll just finish off by saying that there has been some really good engagement with the local communities around this issue. I think they've been very pragmatic, and I think we all share the same aspiration to reduce the impact we have on the environment, and I think that they're being pragmatic about the way that we go about doing that. So I thank them for their engagement so far, and I commend the document as a whole. thank you all staff for the fantastic work that you've done putting it together. To all the finance team, Sarah, all of your team, Stephen, all of your team as well. Thank you, and I commend the document and happy to move it.
Thank you, Mayor Foster, and I'll second, but I'll reserve my right to speak. Does anybody else wish to speak? All right, we don't need a right of reply, and if there's not anything anyone wishes to take separately, we'll go to the vote. I can't keep the surprise out of my voice. There's always another long meeting on the horizon. That is carried unanimously, and very quickly we'll move on to the forward actions tracking and forward program, which we'll do together. Is there anything you'd like to say, Stephen? Some of these dates will shift around, as you know, as we're going slightly later than we initially intended.
The dates in the papers, I think, are the ones that we're currently running with. So they've been updated, and everything else is on track.
Any debate? Who would like to move? Deputy Mayor, would you like to speak? Oh, yes.
No, I would like to move it, and I don't think there's any need to speak. I think we've actually got some really good systems in place for monitoring this and for making sure we keep up to date with our work program. And
wonderful.
planning.
And do we have a seconder? Councillor Condi, and we'll put that to the vote. Again, carried unanimously. So that brings us to the end of our meeting. And we will stand for the closing karakia. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia ki te urutapunui. Kia wātia, kia mama, te ngākau, te tinana, te wairua. I te ara takatū, hoi ara e rongo, whakaaria a ki runga. Kia wātia, ai rā, kua wātia.